Hey, Conor here at Neversink Farm, and welcome to the third installment of the Weed-Free Farm. And I want to talk about wire weeders. Once you have a farm where you're just cultivating in between crops and killing germinating weeds, the wire weeder is really the best way to go. It's not for digging out grass or dandelions or any of those perennials or big weeds. It's really for just running back and forth and keeping the farm weed free, right? Once you've already started. And the wire weeder is great for that. And people are loving the wire weeder. And the simple version of a wire weeder is just a simple triangle wire. And this is something you can even make at home. You just take a piece of wire, turn it into a triangle, attach it to a stick. Pretty simple. And this just runs slightly under the surface and just kills germinating weeds. And the nice thing about it is they can come in different widths depending on how many rows you have on the bed. And a good video to watch is my plant spacing video, which discusses that there's standard distances between rows on a bed. So if you have a 30-inch bed and you do 2 rows, that means you're taking 30 inches, divide it by 2, that's 15 inches. So there's 15 inches between crops, and then 7.5 inches to the path on this side and 7.5 on this side. And it's just standard, whether it's 2, 3, 4 rows on a bed. So the way I've done my wire weeder is each one is standard for one of those. So this one is standard for 3 rows on a bed. And then I have, all right, so I'll just take a look. Right, so we have 2 rows on a bed, and then we have 4 rows on a bed. And that's just standard. So if you're making your own, just make multiple sticks with the different widths. So this is for 2 rows on a bed, 3 rows on a bed, 4 rows on a bed. And I also have 6 rows on a bed, which is this small one, 6 rows on a bed, right? Nice and standard. The other thing is they also come in very stiff wire, which is really nice and harder soil. And then there's thinner, which is flex. So it flexes a bit and it's very sharp. So for softer soils, it may be really nice. You just want to try whichever one you want and find what you really like. So there's also a wire weeder, which is a torsion wire weeder, right? And that's where you're going on either side of the crop, right? And as you push down, you see it flexes open and closed, and it'll also bounce off the crops for larger crops. And then there's smaller versions of these. And this is really nice for getting nice and close to your crop without hurting it. And it's another aspect of wire weeders is they don't have sharp edges on the side, like a collinear or something else. So they're less likely to kill the crops that they're running against, which is really, really sweet. So now what you can do is now you can have every spacing, right? So whether it's 2 rows on a bed, 3 rows, 4 rows on a bed, you have every head for each one of those spacings. So you can just run back and forth, nice and easily, and doing this weekly and keeping it weed free. And to expand on that kind of like standardization of rows, that's what the rebellion's about. Maybe a bit hard to make this at home, but maybe. So this size is for 6 rows on a bed, and it actually has number 6 here, so that that's for 6 rows on a bed. And then that switches out easily. And let's say you wanted to do, 4 rows on a bed. And then you use the number 4, right? And I even have it marked as number 4, so that my guys know. They just come to the row and they saw there's 4 rows on a bed, so I use the number 4 head. So that's the number 4 head. Put it next to the number 4. Now we're running 4 rows on a bed. So now I just need to go up and down just 3 times instead of 5 times. Right, which reduces the work almost in half. And that's what's nice about wire weeders, is you can really standardize things and use the perfect head in the perfect situation. And that's really, really nice to be able to do. And then you can get even more creative. And what I do is, like, if I'm going to do carrots, and I do carrots 4 rows on a bed. Right, so it's 4 rows on a bed, and I'm keeping it at number 4, and then I just throw in some torsions, right? So now I'm taking care of each of the row of carrots and sweeping the middle, and just run back and forth with that. Now I just cut that work, probably a third or a fourth of the work now. And that's all about keeping it standard, right? So that when you do put 4 rows on a bed, you space them correctly. And there's only one way to space it, right? So 4 rows on a bed, that would be 7.5 inches between each crop, right? 3¼ inches on the sides. Easy peasy. All right, so a few tips if you wanted to make just a regular wire weeder at home. What you want to do is you want to use wire that's very high in carbon. And the way you know that is if it's very, very difficult to bend, right? That's going to be usually a high carbon wire. If it's very floppy, what's going to happen is it's going to break very easily. It's going to go back and forth, and then it's going to pop off. So you want to find high carbon wire so that it will maintain its shape. And then when you attach it to a stick, you can attach it to the stick by drilling a hole in it, clamping it down, or screwing it on. You can also use a pipe clamp, any which way, and then start to use them. And I always recommend keeping multiple sizes so that, as I said, you can use the right head in the right spacing so that you don't have to do it multiple times. And then you have an offset wire weeder, which is just, right, you have 4 inches across and then a 1 inch. And that's really for the perfectionist, right? For the person who's, not just running back and forth with the wire weeder up and down the rows, but just kind of going through and finding anything left over, any little tiny weeds, right? Because now you're not just going down a row, but you're trying to squeeze it in some places, some are bigger places, and it's really just for cleanup, which I call spot cultivation, right? So we cultivate up and down the rows, and I might walk around or ask one of my workers to walk around and do a spot and just, look for anything left over and kill it, right? Because all weeds will grow to be big weeds, and all big weeds will flower and create thousands of seeds, right? So there is no good weeds, and you don't want to have the philosophy, we're just not going to let it go to flower. You're just not going to let it go beyond germination stage. That should be the rule, is no weeds, because there's no weeds that are going to be good weeds in a farming situation like this. They're going to choke things out, and it's not going to be any good. All right, so thanks for watching this edition of the Weed-Free Farm, and keep it up.